Today, we delve deep into a topic that often makes headlines but is seldom discussed with the gravity it deserves. We are going to talk about the top 5 stalking cases that turned into terrifying nightmares. These stories are profound reminders of the need for vigilance and the importance of strong legal protections for victims of such invasive, persistent harassment. Our first case transports us back to a time before social media, when celebrities were somewhat more insulated from their admirers. We're talking about the heartbreaking story of Rebecca Schieffer. Her name may not immediately elicit recognition from the newer generation, but her tragic passing marked a significant turning point in the way we regard and legislate against stalking behavior. Imagine, if you will, a young, vibrant actress on the cusp of a promising career. Schieffer's life was ruthlessly snuffed out by an obsessed fan named Robert John Bardo. In 1989, Rebecca Schieffer was living the dream of many aspiring actors in the bustling heart of Los Angeles. However, beneath the shining facade of her rising stardom, there lurked a sinister obsession held by Bardo. His fixation on Schieffer evolved from seemingly innocuous fan letters to a desperate yearning to meet her in person. Despite his initial advances being thwarted, Bardo's obsession only intensified, utilizing private detective services to obtain her address. He took the final, fatal step towards her. The murder shook the nation and begged the critical question: how could a fan's admiration curdle into something so deadly? It is important to note that Schieffer's passing did not vanish into the annals of forgotten Hollywood tragedies. In the wake of the murder, there was a potent outcry for reform and protection against stalking. California enacted the first anti-stalking laws in the United States, setting the precedent for other states to follow. This marked a pivotal transformation in legal processes, demonstrating how a heinous act such as this could catalyze much-needed change. Schieffer's case illustrates the extremes of celebrity obsession, corroborating the need for legal means to prevent contact before it escalates into violence. Transitioning seamlessly from the tragedy that befell Rebecca Schieffer, we arrive at the year 1982. Please join me as we shine a light on another stalking case that gripped the nation, one involving Teresa Saldana, an actress known for her work in Raging Bull amongst other films. Think about the sheer terror Saldana must have felt when her stalker, Arthur Richard Jackson, acquired her address by hiring a private investigator under false pretenses. It is discomforting to acknowledge that an individual's personal safety could be so easily compromised. Saldana, like Schieffer, became the target of a deranged fan. Jackson, holding the delusion that killing Saldana would lead them to be together in the afterlife, made an attempt on her life right outside her home. The image remains indelibly etched in the collective consciousness. A terrified Saldana being rescued by a delivery man who intervened. Saldana survived the assault, thankfully, but this event left physical and emotional scars that would impact her for the rest of her life. The tenacity Saldana exhibited following her brush with death is noteworthy. She channeled her trauma into advocacy, establishing the Victims for Victims organization, which aimed to support and provide resources for individuals affected by violent crimes, including stalking. Because of her efforts, and those of similar victims and advocates, law enforcement began to take notice. They stepped up surveillance methods and developed new approaches to dealing with cases involving stalking. This progress underscored the demanding yet essential requirement for society to understand the complexities of stalking and implement protective measures for potential victims. Continuing our journey through the grim annals of stalking cases that turn diabolical, we reach a name that has become synonymous with a harrowing saga of obsession, manipulation, and ultimately murder. This is the story of Jodi Arias and Travis Alexander. To many who followed the case, the name Jodi Arias has become ingrained as a manifestation of a lover's scorn taken to the most extreme and violent level imaginable. The relationship between Arias and Alexander began with the hallmarks of a modern romance, but as time passed, the dynamic devolved into something much darker. Arias, whose initial interest in Alexander seemed benign, slowly revealed a pattern of invasive and manipulative behavior. What makes this case particularly chilling is the extensive documentation of her obsessive actions, from hacking into his social media accounts to showing up uninvited to his home. The depths of her fixation became clear after the gruesome discovery of Alexander's body. His life ended by multiple stab wounds, a gunshot, and undeniable evidence pointing to an act of jealous rage. The trial that ensued captured the world's attention, with every detail dissected in the media. Arias's shifting stories and attempts to paint herself as the victim were met with skepticism. The mounting evidence, including a digital trail of photos and communications, ultimately led to her conviction for first-degree murder. However, the broader implications of the case bring us to a reflection on the nature of interpersonal relationships and the red flags, often dismissed or overlooked, that can escalate into something far more ominous. Switching gears now, let's focus on another case that highlights the persistent, pervasive threat that stalking can pose. Let's talk about Laura Black, whose ordeal by the hands of Elliot Fogel spanned over a decade. A relentless, fearsome cycle of stalking that serves as a sobering testament to the emotional and psychological toll that the absence of effective legal intervention can inflict on the lives of stalking victims. British-born Laura Black could never have imagined the prolonged nightmare that lay ahead when she initially befriended Fogel, her former classmate. As his unrequited feelings transformed into an unhealthy obsession, Black found herself trapped in a scenario far too common for stalking victims. Constant vigilance, fear of the unknown, and the disheartening struggle to convince others of the seriousness of her plight. Fogel's behavior, ranging from the disturbingly intrusive to the bitterly vindictive, laid bare the traumas stalking victims endure. It included everything from threatening letters, obsessively tracking her movements, to outright attempts to break into her property. Despite Black's attempts to seek protection through restraining orders, the legal framework at that time proved inadequately equipped to shield her from Fogel's obsession. Lastly, we cannot talk about stalking without mentioning the case that forever changed the landscape of privacy rights, particularly for those in the public eye. This brings us to Erin Andrews, acclaimed sports broadcaster whose horrifying experience not only exposed the vulnerabilities inherent to fame, but also cast a stark light on the depraved lengths some will go to invade another's privacy. In 2008, Michael David Barrett, exploiting his knowledge of hotel security systems, managed to alter the peepholes on Andrews' hotel room doors, allowing him to film her without her consent. The videos, illicitly recorded and brazenly distributed, were a gross violation of her privacy and autonomy, leading to a prolonged legal battle that highlighted the glaring inadequacies in privacy protections for individuals in the limelight. Andrews' tenacity in the courtroom not only resulted in a sizable judgment against her stalker and the hotel, but also catapulted the issue of stalking into the national discourse once again. Her case demonstrates the ever-present risk of boundary violations faced by public figures, but also signifies a critical juncture: the determination to challenge and seek justice against intrusions of privacy. Andrews' advocacy has amplified conversations around stalking and privacy laws, reminding us of the need for continuous vigilance and legislative improvement to protect individuals against such pervasive violations of personal space and safety. Thank you for joining us on this journey into understanding the darkest aspects of human obsession. Please remember to like, share, and continue supporting our channel as we venture further into topics that impact the social fabric of our lives.